The federal government has invoked the Emergencies Act. This is about keeping Canadians safe, protecting people's jobs, and restoring confidence in our institutions. Occupying streets, harassing people, breaking the law. This is not a peaceful protest.
Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau invoking the country's Emergency Act for the first time ever. This comes as protesters refuse to back down in their fight against the country's vaccine mandates.
Canadian correspondent Michael Charbon joins us now live from Ottawa with the very latest. Michael?
Heather, you're looking at the Parliament buildings in Ottawa, Ontario. That's where Justin Trudeau sits with his minority government. The real loyal opposition is parked right over here. They've been here for just over 2 weeks. 419 trucks. Now, there's lots of law enforcement that's here, but they're walking back and forth. There's no forced aggression. There's no sign of military. And there's a rousing rendition of Dee Snider's "We're Not Gonna Take It." That's what's happening in Ottawa. The truckers are still here. The government is going on. There's all kinds of threats as far as the government's concerned. The truckers are resilient. They're going to stay here, Heather. They're not leaving. There's a stalemate. That's basically where we're at now.
Michael, you know, these people, as you say, have been there a couple of weeks. How are they making a living? I mean, they put their careers on hold to make a point, but these are hardworking folks. They can't do this forever. When you talk to them, what do they tell you?
Many of them say that they're on disability, or they're on leave, or they're just taking a sabbatical. They're saying they don't want to go through the trials and tribulations of having to go back and forth on the border and produce a PCR test every 72 hours. It's all about the mandates. I haven't heard anybody say that they're getting any money from anybody per se, but there's free food here, there's a hot fire, there's a gasoline which is being transported in and out. And these people are here because of their conscience, because of their kids, and because they feel they need to be here to make a point. That's, I mean, as far as making a living, they don't think they could make a living under the restrictions that are currently taking place.
Well, and now with the Emergency Powers Act that's gone into place, anyone that would be contributing money to them, or even the suspicion of doing that, can have their bank accounts frozen. Thank you very much. Will we see this happen here? Let's bring in Ohio Attorney General Dave Yost with his thoughts. Thank you very much for joining us. I'd like to begin there with this Emergency Power Act that we've seen that there in Canada by Justin Trudeau will authorize banks to freeze the accounts of anyone even suspected, without a warrant, I understand, of supporting these truckers in their efforts. Now, we've seen debanking and deplatforming efforts here in the United States when it comes to conservatives and conservative voices. Could it go this far?
Well, hopefully not, as long as the Bill of Rights is actually enforced. But the trouble that we see on the left is they want to use a crisis, an emergency, as a reason to set aside the rule of law, to set aside freedom, to set aside the Constitution. If an emergency is enough to put aside freedom, pretty soon you're going to have a permanent crisis and no freedom.
Yeah, let me ask you about what is likely to occur March 1st. The president is giving a State of the Union address. And I know that, I'm sure in Ohio, as many places in the country now, people are fed up with mandates. They're fed up with mask mandates. They're fed up with vaccine mandates. Some of those are working themselves through the court. Some have been thrown out saying you can't have those vaccine mandates. The D.C. mayor just said that she was going to suspend the mask mandates March 1st. Well, that's pretty convenient. March 1st is the State of the Union. Do you think something's coming from the president on that day to release some of the mandates throughout the country? And if so, how do you see that shaping up?
Well, I'm interested to see what the State of the Union address looks like this year. Because make no mistake about it, Americans are sick and tired of being dictated to. They're tired of mandates, being told this, that, and the other, and having the goalposts moved It seems like every other week we're hearing something completely different. I'm imagine that Joe Biden, who's a pretty smart politician, who's been blowing with the political winds for 50 years, is sensing that Americans have had enough. But the real problem that I've got with the president is that he's using the force of law to require us to do things when he doesn't have that authority. That's why Ohio went to the Supreme Court of the United States and argued and won an order finding the OSHA mandate was beyond his authority, unconstitutional.
Yeah, and really, we've seen this movement by state attorneys generals like yourself taking back control within their states and trying to give people their freedoms back that the federal government, with their overreach, has unprecedentedly tried to take away, I think, the past couple of years. And I think that's also what part of this trucker movement is really about. It's not right or left. It's about working class Americans taking back their rights, at least when they have the trucker movement here, which I think is going to begin on February 23rd.
And where do you go when the president or the prime minister is deciding what the law is and what you're allowed to do? If Congress were debating the vaccine mandate, we'd all be able to go down and protest at Congress. We'd be able to testify or submit to testimony. But when one person's doing it, we've short-circuited the rule of law, and it's not self-governance anymore.